Hello and welcome to Mindshifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's joining us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeannie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website, click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner. It will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening? That chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again, absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to do that and listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get the maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that, before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Drag-On Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to prompt comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org. or you can email Jeannie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a comment or a question from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. If you're listening to us currently through the internet at live.nedl.com/mindshifterradio, we're glad you're here, glad you're choosing to spend time with us, and at this point in time, you cannot comment or talk to us through the phone line unless you download the Needle app. So you go to your app store and search for Needle, N-E-D-L, AI Tuner for Live Radio. Once you download that app and log in, it will have you answer a couple questions, and then you'll be able to type in a comment or actually press the phone icon and talk to us voice to voice. And we always greatly appreciate whenever anybody chooses to do that, because whether it's through email or a typed comment or raising your hand to speak to us directly, whenever people share what's going on for them and how well these tools and what we're choosing to do on the internet show is landing for them, whenever people share that, it makes it infinitely easier for us to live into our intention with this work. The intention we have with this work is to be of service. And if you call in or type a question, you will also help us dramatically increase the chances that the quality of the show increases. Because the vast majority of shows that have been labeled a best of or highlight show and marked for frequent replay are the shows that result when people just like you call in and ask a question. So let us know. How's it been resonating for you to hear us read the Of Course in Miracles book by Alan Cohen and reading it with commentary? Would you prefer no commentary? Would you prefer if I just read it straight as verbatim or close to verbatim as I can manage? Are you getting thoughts stimulated? Are you having your belief systems challenged? All of these things are good questions for us, good comments for us to be aware of. If any of that's going on for you, please let us know. And I'll reiterate what I say most days, which is that every time somebody chooses to send us an email or type a comment in the app or raise a hand to speak to us directly, it is a blessing and an addition to the show. Even if I seem to be in the middle of reading or in a monologue, I welcome the input at whatever level you feel compelled to do that, and or willing to do it even if you don't feel compelled. Yesterday, right near the end of the show, as I was waiting for comments and reading through the most recent lesson that I've been reading of the book Of Course in Miracles, Alan Cohen quoted Dr. Michael Ryce from his book, Why Is This Happening to Me Again?, related to Michael's discussion about the geographic cure. Michael calls it the geographic cure. Some people call it running away from your problems. And Alan was talking about how wherever we go, once we get there, there we are. We take ourselves with us, and it is simply not possible to run away from our problems. Wherever we go, once we get there, we show up, and all of our problems come with us. Because, as this work highlights for us, even though the app didn't show me that someone had commented, it appears that someone commented. Thank you, Celinda, approving of the commentary with the reading. So the idea is that without our thoughts about a given situation, labeling it as bad or wrong, there are no problems. Problems are the creation of our thought process. And without us to be there to label it as a problem, life is just life. One of the things I've talked about quite a few times in the past few years, that you do realize, don't you, that there is no such thing as a natural disaster. There's only nature, unless there's a human being around to identify it and label it as bad or wrong. And whatever nature does is just nature. It's the flow of life. And as such, that same kind of observation about life can be applied to everything that we call a problem. Things are only a problem because we label them a problem. That same situation, we could choose to label it as a challenge, an opportunity, a blessing. Some people, think, oh, it's okay to call it a blessing in disguise. Well, if you say it's in disguise, you mean it doesn't seem like a blessing. And it only doesn't seem like a blessing because you're not willing to look at it from that perspective. We are in the process, today, tomorrow, and always, we are in the process of creating our experience of life. And we do that moment to moment in the ways that we choose to interpret and respond to this thing we call life, this flow of life. At least the best we can make out of life as we interpret events. Right? I mean, like, life is not what we think it is. Life is just life. And when we have thoughts about it, then we create an experience of it in line with our thoughts, literally structured by our thought process. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier in a session about this very thing, the idea that, and this is just like the story that we read yesterday in Alan Cohen's book, where the gatekeeper at the town greets travelers and they say, what's this town like? And he said, well, what's the town you came from like? And they tell him, and then the gatekeeper goes, well, that's pretty much what you'll find here. Right? Whatever you're used to, whatever you think people are like, that's what you'll start to see when you interact with people. What you see through your eyes has a lot more to do with who's looking than what is being looked at. It's always been the truth. It'll always be the truth. This is just how we operate in life. It's how our senses, how we use the input of our senses to generate this thing we call perception. It isn't, the actuality of life is not hard and fast the reality that we create about it. And the reality that we create about it is our interpretation based on our judgment and our, believe it or not, our distortion. And the Course in Miracles has that line. It says, you must come to understand the distorting power of the way you want things to be. When you want something, Guy Finley has a line where he says, if you don't want anything from someone, they can't lie to you. As soon as you want something from someone, you can be lied to, in quotes, lied to, close quotes. The essence of the teaching that we are creating our experience of life and that we are active in the process of perception it's a powerful key to being able to construct your life in a more preferable way. So, again, please remember that I welcome comments or questions, even if I seem to be in the middle of reading or a monologue. Where we had left off yesterday was right at the end of lesson 18. He has miraculous insights. Most of them are in the form of questions. The first question is, what stories have you made up about others being able to hurt you? The second question is, what better story of your safety and wholeness would you like to use to replace those old stories? Next, the question is, what old patterns or relationships do you see replicated in new relationships and situations? The fourth question is, what geographical cures, whether it's material manipulations of any kind, have you attempted that haven't worked? That's a good question to reflect on, and just let your own history be instructive for you in a new way. When you drop your beliefs about what happened and how it happened and why, and just go back and start questioning it with this more wide open position, you might start to see how what you thought was a cure, taking the geographic cure, never really resolved anything. The fifth question, what vertical cures, what higher spiritual consciousness might you be able to apply to your current situation that will work? And then the sixth insight is, walk around your room or outside your home and apply this statement to everything you see and do. And the first statement is, I am dreaming that I am seeing ... Or I am dreaming that I am doing ... And he offers this as a way to help us, or have each of us invite ourselves to understand the dream nature of our perception, the hallucinatory nature of our perception. And as soon as I use the word hallucinatory, I think of the lectures given by Anil Seth, who's a scientist who's studying perception. Anil, A-N-I-L, last name Seth, S-E-T-H. And if you go to YouTube and type those two words in, his first and last name, you probably see stuff. But if it doesn't immediately click into his TED Talks, you can type in Anil Seth hallucinating perception, or Anil Seth perception, and you'll probably come up with several videos you can watch where he presents the latest research he and his colleagues have come up with about how each and every one of us is creating our experience of life through this very active process of perception. And then Alan Cohen offers these affirmations. I trade old stories that haven't served me for new stories that truly serve me. I heal painful patterns or relationships by applying higher consciousness. I awaken by recognizing that I have been dreaming my life. And, you know, there's many people who have understood the wisdom of the things we've lived through, the beliefs we have, the biases that we hold that we are not willing to look at consciously or directly. And as Michael likes to quote C.G. Jung as saying, until you make the unconscious conscious, like until you turn around and look at what you're carrying around in your consciousness, the stuff you're not willing to look at, the unconscious, will drive your life, and you'll call it fate. And I like to add to that the Paramahansa Yogananda understanding that there is no such thing as the unconscious. There's simply part of our consciousness that we refuse to look at, that we have somehow labeled bad or wrong or too much or too scary or too painful, and so we just refuse to allow it into conscious awareness. And it's our own mind energy that we're using to create the veil, as Michael calls it, or the block between my ability to be consciously aware of something and the fact that I'm carrying it around in my consciousness, hidden. So, comments, questions, answers, testimonials, all are welcome. And just checking the app here to make sure that nobody's typed in a comment or raised a hand that I can't see. And if any of those things happen and you've got a comment or a question and you're not able to get a response through the app, I apologize in advance, and I will invite an email or a text if you are one of those people who has my cell number, and help us become aware of glitches and then pass that information along to the techno wizards who will help resolve it if it can be resolved. Lesson 19 in the book Of Course in Miracles, subtitled When Love Becomes a Way of Life. He titles this chapter, Heaven Can't Wait. And Alan writes, a renowned samurai came to a Zen master and demanded, quote, teach me about heaven and hell, close quote. The master looked the warrior up and down, snickered, and replied, quote, teach you about heaven and hell? You are an uneducated, thick-headed, arrogant buffoon. I wouldn't waste one moment trying to teach you about ideas you could never grasp, close quotes. Hearing that, the samurai grew furious. He began to breathe heavily, his cheeks reddened, and he lifted his sword to chop off the teacher's head. Just as the warrior was about to strike, the master raised his hand and stated, quote, that, sir, is hell, close quotes. The samurai stopped and took a moment to absorb the teacher's statement. Suddenly he realized that the master was teaching him a profound lesson. We create our own hell by fear, anger, and unbridled emotions. Humbled, he bowed his head to the master's knee. Quote, thank you, sir, for teaching a teaching that will change my life, close quotes. The master gently placed his hand on the samurai's shoulder, lifted his head, and found his eyes. The master said, quote, and that, sir, is heaven, close quotes. Alan writes, heaven is not a place, but a state of consciousness. We do not have to wait to go to heaven or hell when we die. Both of these states manifest in our lives now. Many of us have struggled through hell and in flashes touched heaven, even as we walk this earth. Many religions teach that heaven is in the afterlife, a reward for living a good life. Some teach that the more we suffer here, the more we earn paradise. Yet, God does not dangle love like a carrot just beyond our reach. The heaven we hope for after death is available to us right where we stand. He quotes the workbook 131 saying, why wait for heaven? It's here today. Alan writes, I once flew to Newark Airport on a hot summer Sunday evening. The place was crowded and noisy, and I felt put off. After a long trip, I just wanted to get home. My friend greeted me in the baggage claim area and began to lead me toward her car in the parking lot. Suddenly, I realized I had made up a story about the airport that was keeping me from peace. Unhappy stories are our own creation. I invited my friend to sit with me for a moment, and I suggested, let's play a game called Heaven. Let's imagine that everything that is happening here is happening just as it is, but we are in heaven. My friend was willing to play, so I went on. I said, look at those people coming through the arrival door. They have landed safely in heaven after a long trip away. They are greeting their loved ones with smiles, tears, and embraces. Their friends and relatives who arrived in heaven before them are welcoming them. I pointed toward the door that led to the street. The limousines and tour guides await to show them to their destination. My friend got into the game with me, and within a few minutes we were laughing and soaring. I no longer cared about getting home quickly. I was already in heaven. Where else did I need to go? Consider all the things you've been told you must do before you can enter heaven. Whether it's you have to lose 20 pounds, you have to eat only organic food, you have to master all the Course in Miracles workbook exercises, you have to find your true soulmate, you have to get rid of who you thought your soulmate was, you have to go to church regularly, you have to give lots to charity, perhaps you have to trek through the Himalayas to sit at the feet of gurus, maybe you need to overcome your sexual fantasies, maybe you have to endure dinners with annoying relatives. Maybe you have to finally vote evil politicians out of office, and on and on and on. Alan says, sheesh, no wonder so many people are tired and frustrated. Trying to earn heaven through an endless list of daunting tasks is exhausting. A Course in Miracles cuts through all of those assumed prerequisites and assures us that we can enter heaven right now by opening up to it and giving up our fascination with hell. The workbook underscores, quote, each time you practice, awareness is brought a little nearer at least. Sometimes 1,000 years or more are saved, close quotes. That's from the workbook lesson 97. Alan writes, talk about a time-saving device. We already stand where we are struggling to get to be. Ease is a far more powerful success tool than anxious thriving. Alan says we can claim heaven now and beat the rush later. In the movie The Field of Dreams, Ray Kinsella reunites with his estranged father, who asks his son, is this heaven? When we drop our grievances and forgive ourselves and others, we are in heaven. Love, capital L, love, is heaven. Ray's dad tells him, heaven is where dreams come true. In the film, father and son connect on a ball field in Iowa. But that setting is simply the stage on which heaven is played out. Heaven is not a geographical location. It is a reunion. And then he quotes the textbook 26, where it says, quote, the holiest of all the spots on earth is where an ancient hatred has become a present love, close quotes. Alan writes, the Hawaiian spiritual tradition teaches that every newborn child is like a bowl of light. We love to be around children and pets because they are still connected to heaven and they radiate original innocence. They remind us who we are, where we come from, and where we are headed. Then the Hawaiians teach that the world deposits rocks in the child's bowl. Rocks like fear, guilt, anger, resentment, and jealousy gradually displace the child's natural light until it is just a tiny trickle of the original luminescence that is shining through. By the time the child reaches adulthood, separation, pain, and sorrow overshadow the expression of divinity. And the textbook, lesson 4, says, this need not be. Alan writes, healing does not require us to import anything we don't already have. It does not call us to any place other than where we are. Enlightenment is about peeling away what we are not to reveal what we are. The Course is not about gaining love, but instead quote, it does aim at removing the blocks to awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. And that's from the textbook, maybe in the introduction, 1.8. When we let go of what is not heaven, only heaven remains. Stop creating your own hell. That's the invitation with this work. Wake up to recognize how many times and ways we are creating blockages to our experience of our truth of ourselves as our true nature as love. Alan goes on and writes, A Course in Miracles tells us that the purpose of time is to learn to use it well. Just like Way of Mastery says in a number of places, learn to use time wisely. Alan writes, the ego is quick to usurp the Holy Spirit's intention. It jumps in to co-opt time toward its own end. It does so by placing well-being at some future date. And yet, if well-being is not now, it's not ever. If it's not in heaven, it doesn't deserve to be there. The ego is all about wanting and waiting rather than claiming and enjoying. He quotes the textbook, the 12th lesson, as saying, its dictates then can be summed up by simply as saying, quote, seek and do not find, close quotes. That's the ego's dictate. The ego is always saying, seek, but never find. Alan writes, if you define yourself as a spiritual seeker, you will never find, because you're proceeding from a faulty premise. The invitation is to define yourself as a spiritual finder, and you will be home everywhere, always. An ancient fable tells that when the earth had been formed and people were about to be placed on the planet, a group of gods got together and decided to set humanity on an adventure to find the secret of life. But where to hide it? That's the question. So one god suggested, let's place the secret of life at the top of the highest mountain. Another replied, no, people will be motivated to climb and they'll find it too easily. Another offered, well, then let's hide the secret at the bottom of the ocean. Another responded, no, that won't work either. They'll invent submarines and the game will be over. As the gods discussed it, they went round and round, trying to choose some physical location where human beings would not easily unearth the great secret. Finally, one god lit up and said, I've got it. Let's hide the secret of life inside each person. They'll never think to look there. A Course in Miracles points us to look within for our answers. It urges us to quit searching the outer world and to take the deep dive. At every choice point, we will be brilliantly guided. The Course pierces beyond all of our attempts to place healing at a temporal or geographical distance. There is no time or space in heaven because heaven is everywhere always. When we enter everywhere always through the portal of here and now, we are home. All the love we seek is right where we are. Knowing that, our hearts can soar with appreciation for the gifts with which we have been bestowed. And that, my dear samurai, is heaven. And then he quotes the workbook 361 to 365, where it says, quote, for I would follow you, certain that your direction gives me peace, close quotes. So where is your heaven? Where is your hell? How are you creating a hell for yourself at any given moment? How are you missing the experience of heaven in the here and now in any given moment? Alan offers these miraculous insights. The first question is, how are heaven and hell not places you go after you die, but states of mind you experience while you live? How is that for you? Have you ever experienced it? The next question is, what hell have you created in your own life? The next question is, what heaven have you created in your own life? The next question asks us to consider, how can we create less hell or no hell and instead create more or all heaven? Next question asks, where have you sought the secret of life in the outer world? Have you ever found it there? And next, how might you seek and find the secret of life within yourself? Number 7 frequently prompts me to go back to the book, The Mirror Theory. I'll read question 7 is, what do you think has to happen before you can be happy? And in the book, The Mirror Theory, Charlie tells Betsy, whenever you think someone or something outside of you has to change in order for you to be happy, the moment you think that, the key to happiness is lost. Alan offers 2 more questions or 2 more insights. One is, how could you choose happiness now before anything else happens? And then he suggests that we take a situation in our life and turn it into heaven by simply just applying more heavenly thoughts to it. And then he offers the affirmations. I turn hell into heaven by choosing heavenly thoughts. And I do not have to wait for anything to happen before I can be happy. And finally, I choose total well-being now. I choose total well-being now. So that's a shorter chapter 19, defining our experience of life by how we choose to focus our conscious awareness in any given moment. That's literally how we create our experience of life. And we have plenty of time for comments, questions, answers, testimonials. Today's a Tuesday, so there will be a support group available tonight, absolutely free. All the information you would need to be able to join us is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. If you're going to go there, please remember that there are 2 different pages with Zoom login information, and one is for Thursday and one is for Tuesday. Today's a Tuesday, so we'll have a group tonight. We would be happy to have you join us or have you pass the information along to somebody you think might benefit from joining us. There are people who can attest to the benefits of those groups. And if you're doubtful about that, let us know. I'm sure that someone will pipe up and share their experience of participating in the support groups. There have been plenty of people who've done that over the past 20 plus years that we've been running the Tuesday group. So how can we support you today? What is resonating for you? What's on your mind? I hear a little click. Celinda, are you in the air?
Yes, can you hear me?
You're very soft, but yes, I do understand your words.
Yeah, I've got my volume all the way up and I have the speaker right to my mouth.
Okay, try
Um,
swallowing the phone and then talk and see what happens
oh,
then.
yeah, right. There you go. There you go. It's just not happening, but that's okay. If anybody can hear me at all, I'll be happy to share for a few minutes. I had an interesting experience with Larry yesterday. I was made a comment where, oh, by the way, before I start, on the support group, yes, I thoroughly enjoy the support group. Um, and I will be there tonight, but I may have to boogie out early because it's our Azure order that's coming in. So I just want to let you know. And now my interesting conversation with Larry was hinged around a thought that came into my mind, which I thought was an observation about recycling and our sucking up the life's resources. And I happened to make the comment that it was, and it can't boil down to the individual, and that the biggest polluter in life is the individual in the conglomerate, the collective whole, bigger than military, bigger than corporations, bigger than, and the end go, it's endless. And it has to do with our commodity, our bowing down to the god of commodity. And that was just, I thought, was an observation. And then because I mentioned America as a focal point, I didn't think to include the whole world. Larry jumped on it as I was judging us as being different than the whole world. I just hadn't thought about it that way. And I just thought it was just a thought, a flow of thoughts. And that I was, I had an issue, and then it went on to a conversation about I really never desire to be wealthy because I have an addictive kind of personality, and it's I could see when one is surrounded by so much wealth where the perspective gets warped. And pretty soon it's nothing to go out and buy a $500 pair of shoes or on and on and on. In the winter here it gets really cold, so people tend to run, and this is not just the high-end groups either. They run their motors continuously, like when they're in the store or something. And so I thought it was just observations, but he took it very personally and said I was judging the U.S. and ought to go live in China and India and places like that where the junk is all piled up. And still not realizing that he was really triggered, I responded yes, and how much of that is what we ship out to them? And then I started saying, this isn't going anywhere. Of our garbage, our trash that we ship to um, other nations, and didn't even think about what we dump in the ocean. But anyway, and that wasn't exclusive of the rest of the world. I just happened to think about us here in the United States and me as an individual. So my question is, can I do a worksheet when I have no idea whether I was really carrying a judgment, because it's very possible, and or if that was just an opinion and it wasn't my stuff?
Well, if you're questioning it, it's your stuff.
Okay.
And clearly, if you're in an interaction with somebody and you're thinking about it and talking about it the next day, you had skin in the game, so to speak. You were triggered.
Yeah, and I
There's
thanked Larry at the end, by the way, for, when I thought about it. And I said, you're probably right. Maybe we're both right. Fine. Thank you. Okay.
so your question then is, how would I do a worksheet around that? And the answer is, start with your
Yeah.
emotional state. How, as honestly as you can, get yourself to state how did you feel when you realized that Larry was triggered, in your words.
I was surprised.
So you can do a worksheet on the surprise.
How,
What's your emotion? Surprise or confusion. Okay? And then the thought you're using to create the emotion or confusion is, I don't get it. Why is he reacting this way? And then from that emotion of surprise or confusion and your thought, I don't get it, the goal is, I want to figure it out. I want to understand. And then when you cancel that thought and cancel that goal and ask to be shown the hidden part of your mind, you'll get shown a different part of your consciousness that you have not been fully aware of until you invite it into conscious awareness or conscious activity.
and I think I actually did that in a mental form because I got to thinking, I got to thinking about the families of my origin and what kinds of things they said. And I got to thinking about the fact that I've been recycling for 53 years minimum ever since I landed in Marin County, California in 1973 as a military widow. Go figure, that was a real experience. And I learned a lot to respect these very much and embrace the value that resonated for me, and recycling was one. So I could see where there could be some self-righteous judgment in that. I can also see where there might be.
Okay, let me just stop you, right? Because what you're doing now is going on an intellectual exploration.
Okay.
And whatever you find at that level, it may be useful, right? The intellect has its place
Right.
in our life.
Right.
And yet it's not in its right place when I try to use it to figure out how I'm generating upset.
Okay.
Because my mind has been trained to tell me that my upset's caused by people and things outside of me. So just figure out what your mind is telling you and then put it on a worksheet and cancel it and just go into that open meditative state and watch what bubbles to the surface. Watch what you become aware of. But stop all of the, oh, I can see where that makes sense, until after you've had a shift in perception and a download. Somebody just typed in a comment that asks, am I in judgment anytime I'm experiencing a so-called negative emotion? Is that correct? In this work, that's what we observe. And you can also be in judgment anytime you experience what you're calling a positive emotion and believing that your positive emotion is only happening because X, Y, or Z person or thing is happening outside of you. Oh, I finally got that promotion I was after. Oh, this person finally apologized. That's why. Oh, this person told me that I just saved their life and they absolutely love me. That's why I'm feeling the positive emotion. Even those, if I believe they're being caused by someone or something outside of me, are false assumptions, false beliefs. Because the only thing that causes my emotion is the pattern of thought that I choose to pour my mind energy into. Anytime I pour enough of my mind energy into a thought that's generally associated with a particular energy that we would call an emotion, I will begin to feel that energy. And TJ says, I got it. Thank you. Okay, thanks for the question. So does that put you in good stead there, Celinda, to be able to frame out that worksheet and then actually do it rather than think about it?
Yes, I will do it. And I just realized that I will do it. and I will report back to you in the support group if I can get on right away, and not from your end, but from mine. And since that's always our supper hour, and we'll be rushing around, but I really want to do that worksheet.
Okay. All right. Anything else we can support you with today?
Something, and I'm on to something. And that's cool because I want to know what he's on to so I can clean up my act a little bit more. It'll be done.
All right. Blessings. Thank you for the call.
Thank you so much.
We have just a few minutes. If anybody wants to type in a comment or a question or raise a hand to say hello through the Needle app. Jane has a comment that says, after 30 years of this work, it's astounding how often I'm still in mental judgments. Yeah, well, we learn well, right? We get programmed and we learn our programming. And there's a level at which whatever gets programmed into us and then gets repeated on autopilot is a tremendous benefit to us. Imagine if you had to relearn how to drive a car every time you stepped in the car. Probably not a very efficient experience of life you'd be having if that were the case. And so there's a time and a place for that autopilot. There's a time and a place for the intellect. There's a time and a place for figuring things out, not in the realm of emotions. And as Dr. Michael Ryce likes to point out, the ego has a cheap copy of the spiritual abilities. And the number one pseudo solution of the non-being mind, the way Dr. Ryce talks about it, is I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to think enough thoughts in a slightly different pattern, and eventually my thoughts, which, by the way, are the thing that cause all of the emotions I experience, my choice of the thoughts, that if I just keep thinking, maybe eventually these thoughts that are causing all of this pain and suffering emotionally in my life will magically start to solve the problem that they created. And as Einstein points out to us, you cannot solve a problem at the scale of mind that created the problem. It's fascinating. It's what David Bohm has he coined the term sustained incoherence. And something that's incoherent is something that doesn't make sense. So sustained incoherence means I start doing something that doesn't make sense, and then I think, well, boy, this isn't working. Maybe if I keep doing it, it'll work all of a sudden. So it's thinking, using this activity of thought, and in that process generating some kind of distress or discomfort, and then making the decision that I'll continue it and maybe redouble my efforts in it, and maybe things will get better. If I just think harder, if I just think longer or faster, etc., etc. And most of us who have been working with tools like this long enough and found them beneficial can give testimony to the fact that it's a far better thing to choose a different process than the one I've already tried dozens of times that hasn't worked any of those times. So thank you for the comments. Thank you for listening. Those of you who are listening, we still have time. Well, actually, we're down to the last couple minutes. So I will just remind us again that we have a support group today on a Tuesday. All the information you would need to either join us or pass that information along to somebody else is available on the mindshiftersacademy.org website. And we run from 6:30 to 9 p.m. on Central Time. And feel free to join us or pass that along to somebody you think would benefit from it. I'll remind us all that we will end this hour, and then you'll have to turn off and on your app, and Michael and Jeannie will come back on hopefully for a second hour. And then we'll be back Wednesday, Thursday, Friday this week. God willing and the creek don't rise, as my grandma would say. And I'll just remind us all that we come from love. We're made of the stuff that we call love. We actually are love, and everything else is false. Blessings.